goal here today is to learn how to protect websites, which turns out to be a big issue.
Well, hi, everybody. Thanks for having me. I guess I want to ask up front, how many people are actually developing websites and making sure they're secure? Okay. All right. And those of you that aren't, hopefully you'll find this as interesting as those of us who are developing websites and want to keep them secure. Do you have websites of your own? That's a good enough reason to want to keep them secure and make sure your assets are accounted for. I'm going to try to share my screen right now and get into the slideshow. I don't see you, so I'm not sure if you have set me up to.
You have sharing permission.
Okay, but okay, let's see. I'm gonna do this so I can see you as well. I can't see you as well though. So what do I need to do to be able to do that?
I'm sorry, what is it you want to do? You want to do both? You want to be able to see us and share? Go ahead and share your screen.
Yeah.
Let's see that. Let's see how that comes out. Go ahead.
Oh, okay, let me get back to. Okay, share my screen. That'll help. Yeah. Share screen.
We're still waiting.
My bad.
Hold on a sec. We're not seeing it yet. There we go.
There.
Now you should have on your right-hand side all your people.
Okay, excellent. How's that? So this presentation is about 13 signs your site has been hacked and what to do about it. And we have Ask Carol, which is a LinkedIn group that if anybody wants to ask questions, please do so there. And we check it often and we'll be happy to respond to your questions. And today,
Carol, you're dealing, in my case, with a kind of an ignoramus about the internet. Could you tell us what Ask Carol is and how I would access it?
So when you go to LinkedIn, the hashtag is just a symbol that calls Ask Carol, which is a group out there. And then any question you put in the content. So you go to LinkedIn and you type in hashtag Ask Carol. Anything that comes after that is going to be a question that gets put into my group. And
so it's a LinkedIn function.
Yeah, yes.
Thank you.
Okay. So with that, after today is over, at the end of this presentation, what I'd like to do is offer you this download, and you can get the download by emailing Tom at sumtotalphonesandcameras.com, and he'll give it to you so you can use this every time you go to secure your website and continuously monitor it. Today's topics are: what are the signs you've been hacked? And empower yourself with some tools that we use to do this, and take proactive steps to continuously monitor and protect. Okay, sorry. So what is website security? Is it just a security plugin? Is it just a strong password? It's actually a continuous process of risk management, and risk management including, but not in, early detection, prevention, protecting your website, maintaining good performance of your website, making sure that it downloads to the browser quickly so your visitors are not waiting, monitoring, and response. And I'm sorry, I keep pushing things around so I can see you. So our story is, it all started when, and this is why I'm a woman on a mission. In March of 2018, we launched our brand new Hit the Web Marketing website makeover. And in September of 2018, we were developing one of our monthly email reward programs. We sent out our email to a couple of our testers, and one of our testers clicked the link to the website that was in the email, and he reported back to me that he received a notice that the website contained possible malware. So the message to him was something like, possible malware on site ahead, proceed at your own risk, return to safety, or continue at your own risk. And I said, okay, I'll look into this. And I didn't actually look into it because I was thinking it was because we were sending a test email. And to be honest, I had never come across a website that had been hacked yet. So little did I know that a virus was lurking and spreading all sorts of havoc. So here's where it started. In the email that we sent out, I mentioned we clicked on this button right here, and it came up with a message something like this. You can get this from the browser itself when you're going to a website that's not secure. And basically what it's saying.
Excuse me, Carol. I'm just going to point out to people that in the top of your Zoom picture, you have a link called View Options. If you click on View Options, you'll see something called Zoom Ratio. If you choose Zoom Ratio, you can change the percentage of your magnification, and you'll be able to magnify Carol's slides, so you'll be able to read it more clearly. So I encourage people to try that technique out. You go to View Options, click on it. One of the options is Zoom Ratio. Choose a Zoom ratio you like. I'm choosing 150. And then you get a cute little hand that lets you move around the slide so that even though it's big, you can move around and see more clearly what Carol's got here.
Huh, I don't see that, but hopefully you all do.
No, it's an individual choice, Carol. So each user can choose to go to View Options. You don't have to, but you can go to View Options and change the magnification in which you're seeing the presentation.
Oh, in the browser?
It's actually in Zoom. So it's a Zoom option. At the top, all of us have a green bar that says you are viewing Carol's screen. To the right, there's a little button called View Options. And when you click on that, you get some options.
Okay.
And one of them is Zoom Ratio. And I'm encouraging people to try that so they can read your slide better.
Bravo. I'm not getting that, so that's why I can't do it, unfortunately, but I do see some.
I think that's because you're the sharer.
Okay.
I think that's why, yeah.
So I blew this up so everybody could see what this message is actually saying, and I'll read it off to you. The website ahead contains malware. Google Chrome has blocked access to malware testing Google Test for Now. Even if you visited this website in the past safely, visiting it now is likely to infect your Mac with malware, so it can tell what kind of computer you have. Malware, as you probably know, is malicious software that causes things like identity theft, financial loss, and permanent file deletion. So the option is go back or advance. And it's really not a good idea to advance. So you would most likely go back. Okay, so that was what we saw in our email. And then, so I was, okay, now I understand that my website's been hacked. Now I was really upset and I was-
Carol, I'm sorry for interrupting you again. Could you go back one step? I just want to see the original email that you sent out.
Can I do it another time so we could just kind of keep the flow? Because
yeah, prefer, please.
I will, share that again, but I need to.
Yeah, keep going.
So this was very upsetting that things were going wrong. So I decided to take it upon myself to look through and what was going on. I also was in social media, and anything that I was trying to do, I was posting to links to Twitter. It wouldn't allow me to post tweets with anything that had links back to my website. So I couldn't understand what was going on. I tried it in Facebook. I didn't get any messages, or I didn't have the problem of posting. It let me do it there. I went into LinkedIn, and LinkedIn said, no, you can't go to the next, you can't post that if it's linking to your website. And I didn't know what was going on at this time. So I sent out a message on my LinkedIn. I said to anybody, is anybody else experiencing this? And if so, what is going on? Well, I didn't hear any back from anybody, so I just started digging in myself. And I happened to be in LinkedIn, and I opened up my profile, and anybody can do this, okay? So if you're in your LinkedIn, you go into your profile, contact info, and as you can see, under website, it says general malware page, and this is hitthewebmarketing.com in kind of some odd characters in there. That's an indication. And then I saw down below, because my email goes to my domain name, carol@hitthewebmarketing.com, it also flagged it there. So I was like, oh my gosh, this really is happening. I've been hacked. And what's good about this is that our systems are actually telling us that there's an issue. Okay, search engine.
Carol,
Yeah.
So you're saying that your LinkedIn profile had been hacked?
No, my LinkedIn profile is showing me that I've been hacked, that my domain name has been hacked. My LinkedIn wasn't hacked, but my website, yes.
But you're looking at a LinkedIn link to your website.
Right, so your social media can identify that your website has been hacked, because there is programs out there within social media that check to see if those domain names are hacked. And this is what you're seeing here through my LinkedIn profile. And anybody can see this in your LinkedIn profile.
Oh, so you're saying your website was hacked and LinkedIn noticed and put this warning in front of it?
Yes, correct.
Oh, okay. Okay. So LinkedIn noticed and adjusted. Okay.
That's right, because in LinkedIn, if you put any of this into your profile and you're putting a link to your website, someone goes to that website, they could get malicious malware on their computer. So
Yes, but what you're showing us here is LinkedIn, an indirect indication there's a problem with the website because LinkedIn noticed.
that's right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I went out to the search engine and if you go to your search engine and you type in the name of your business, which I did, you can see in the search bar, hit the web marketing. You start to get a list of, and I'm sorry, because I think I forgot to turn off some timed changes. You can see that the title of this page is Chinese characters. And that's terrible because your title and your description of your pages are the most crucial, but this is a definite indication that Chinese malware has been implemented on my website. So I went on to look at my entire website. If you go to your browser and you use the command, I don't know if anybody's programmer in here, but there are a lot of browser commands that developers can use as tools. And one of them is, and I don't know if you can see it, but in the Google field, I put in site:/hitthewebmarketing.com, and that displays this list of 10 of my pages, okay, that the search engines have indexed. And this is what I found. Every title, every description has Chinese characters. So this can get you really upset because
Carol, sorry to interrupt. Steve is just pointing out these are Japanese characters, but they're not English.
Well, I was speaking with my hosting company at the time, and they indicated that it was a hacker from China, so I said that they were Chinese.
There's a lot of xenophobia in the computer security space. It's quite possible that there are Chinese people involved, but Steve is telling us, Steve knows this, and Steve is telling us this is Japanese.
Okay. All pages are hacked in this particular website.
Yeah.
Now we go, and there is Security has a great site checker. Just go to sitecheck.security.net and you put in your website address, and it can tell you what issues this website has. So what I'm sharing with you here is my website and the report that it gave me. So the site is outdated. Our scanner didn't detect any malware, but it is blacklisted by McAfee and Spamhaus. And at this point, you can see that it doesn't know who the hosting company is, but I can tell you it was GoDaddy. And CMS, it can tell I have WordPress, and it's powered by PHP. So you can see powered by PHP 7.1.18, and compare it to the next line down that says PHP is under 7.1.20. 7.1.20 is the most current one at that time. Now it's a lot higher than that. But you can see that it was only 0.02 behind in a version, and that's part of why you can get hacked. Okay, you look down this report further, you can see that website malware and security is telling us site is outdated, so it's a high risk. It tells us blacklisted by McAfee and Spamhaus. Okay. Kutera. Kutera.com is a website that you can go to. Again, just type in your URL, domain name of your website, and it tells you if there's malicious files found on your server, because not all of us have access to our back end on the server. So if you don't know how to do that, you can use Kutera to find out if there's any bad files out there. If you're a WordPress developer, you're probably familiar with types of files WordPress has. For this one, I used Ubersuggest. I don't know if you've ever heard of Neil Patel, but he's one of the top influencers of digital marketing world. And he has a program called Ubersuggest. And I put the website through this test. And you can see that it has erroneous links and phantom URLs. For instance, the title, Police Radio Codes, Victoria, Australia. associated with my domain name and a folder name that makes no sense, AGLDKTJE, is telling us that there's erroneous backlinks and phantom URLs. So it could be redirecting to phantom websites, which we understand why that's bad is, where is it going? It can take us to websites that have malware. It can take us to websites that we don't want to go to. Okay, so that's Ubersuggest. This didn't happen to us, but what can happen is that you're unable to log into your website from your admin. And this is WordPress. If you have domain name /wp-admin, this is the default login for WordPress. And people who are not familiar with this, you have to change your default. Admin should not be anybody's login to your WordPress database. It should be eliminated, and you should create any username that nobody can guess, okay? And for generating what passwords, there are several programs on the internet that you can have generate really strong passwords for you. So I highly recommend that you do that. And then the next question might be, oh my gosh, so how do I keep track of all these passwords, especially if they're generated by a computer and they usually don't make any sense to me? Tom, what's the program you usually use for maintaining your passwords?
KeePass is the one
KeePass, yes. I use LastPass. So that's two ways that you can keep track of your logins and your passwords. Okay, so again, this could be a reason that when you see you can't log into your own website, this is a key sign that it's been hacked. Files infected with malware. So why does this happen? Well, we have hosting companies, and by default, they share servers. So you have multiple businesses on one server with their websites, and that makes us very vulnerable to being violated. And once one website on a server gets hacked, it's very possible, highly possible, that the rest of them will be hacked as well. So if you can spend a little extra money and go into hosting companies that are more expensive, but their whole goal is to keep our website secure, that is very highly recommended, because you can lose all the work that you've done in designing your content, your images, your case studies, white papers, blogs, infographics, videos, anything that can be stored in your website, your content management system can be just erased. And so it can be very upsetting. So hackers love to redirect your website to another location where there could be malware and virus. Tom and I just had a project that this is exactly what was happening. When you go to this person's websites, and they have 3, we were redirected to, well, I wouldn't say it's a healthcare, it was a Viagra site. So we needed to fix that pretty quickly. You can see, if you go into your Google Analytics or your Google Search Console, you will see huge traffic spikes. When you're usually getting maybe 0 to a couple hundred to 500 visits on your website a month, and it peaks out here like you see almost 1,000, then this is a good indication that you're getting jammed with, it could be bots and it could be hackers, right? So, but it's
Carol, someone was just asking about the previous slide about losing your site gets infected. It's on a shared server, and so the hosting company, to protect everyone else in the community, removes all your files. And they asked, shouldn't your files be backed up? Will you address that as part of your?
Yes, we're going to address that. So what I'm going to do right now, I'm just going through the 13 signs, and then we're going to do some market data, and then I'll show you how we're going to make sure these 13 signs don't happen. And so that'll be taken care of. That question will be definitely taken care of towards the end, but it'll be the last half of our.
Yep.
Okay, so traffic spikes, and so here's a summary. What are the 13 signs we just talked about? Email links to website showing issues. The red screen comes up. Social media blocks links to your website. Strange files on the server. The website gets blacklisted, which means nobody's going to go to your website because the search engines are not displaying it if it's blacklisted. So this is horrible. And it creates a reputation, loss of reputation, so many things. Google marks your site as not secure. So not only do you have that in the URL where you don't have the lock, it will mark it so no one will go. So you can understand how your traffic just dives. Google demotes organic ranking and erroneous backlinks show up. Phantom URLs show up. You're unable to log in. Permanent file deletion. Your hosting company takes your website down. If your hosting company sees that there's any malware on your website, I've had this happen to one of my customers who is now an ongoing customer of this website security plan. And we had to rebuild his website because the hosting company just took it down. And 13, sudden traffic spikes. Okay, so why is this happening? The question I have for you, does anybody know what the most valuable commodity on earth today is? A 4-letter word. All right, it's data. Data is, the goal of the hacker is to steal our data, sell it to other marketing companies, blackmail individuals or entire companies, make your customer information public, which if you're a law firm and your information is public, have you heard about the law firm in New York City who has really high-end like J-Lo and all sorts of different high-end entertainers, and their social security numbers and their salaries were posted. I mean, salary is not a big deal, but their social security information was out there, and the website of this law firm was actually hacked. Like nobody could get in, even the owners. So they want to sell specific data to your competition. They want to damage your website, you damage your network, and sometimes they just do this for fun. Sometimes they don't even care about money, but ultimately most of them are held for ransom. And the one that I'm speaking of, the law firm in New York City, I believe they were holding it ransom for about $20 million.
Wow.
Okay, market data, 2019. In 2019, 56% of websites in content managed systems were outdated at the point of infection. So that's why they were vulnerable, because the software was not up to date. Worldwide, there's WordPress websites, 28 million. Just in the United States alone, there's about 8 million. And you can see to the right here, United Kingdom, Russia, is a lot less than the United States. So the United States is really relying on WordPress platform. I hear this a lot. I'm a small business under the radar, they won't find me. Sometimes I hear, I've been lucky for 10 years, they won't find me now. Cyber market data shows us that cyber attacks are no longer focused primarily on big targets. You're not going to just see them for IBM, JP Morgan. 61% of the breaches are aimed at small and medium-sized businesses. Why? Because they're pretty good, easy targets. Because they have valuable data, they can be held for ransom. They're often unprotected and unmonitored because most people don't really know what it takes to secure them, or they don't realize what is going on because they're just busy doing what they do. But that's why they're vulnerable. As far as WordPress goes, in 2019, 41% of the reason that they were hacked was because of hosting security holes. And 29% is because the themes in our WordPress data website was not up to date. Plugins are not kept up to date, and weak passwords. Okay. In 2020, 98% of the WordPress vulnerabilities are due to plugins. People are not making sure the plugins are up to date.
Can I make a point?
Sure.
The BNUG website, when Josh Turiel, the past president, spun it up about, I don't know, 20 years ago. He happened to check the logs after about a week of operation, and there were 400 attempts to hack it. This is about 20 years ago.
Yeah. Yes, and it wasn't even a big thing then, but it is now. And you'll see even more market data that shows how ridiculous it's gotten. So WordPress is outdated infection CMS distribution 2019. There's so many other programs that are content managed systems. We have Drupal, we have Magento, Joomla, commerce websites. You might know some of those. The Department of Homeland Security shows how many businesses, now there's a lot more than this, but this shows about 84,000 different businesses are directly connected to the internet, and so that makes them vulnerable to hacking. And the critical infrastructure sites are directly connected to the internet, involve all these different industries: healthcare, emergency services, manufacturing. Was surprising to me, but now I understand: critical manufacturing, supply chain, mass transit components, police stations, government agencies. So you can see the vast array of industries. And it just shows you the opportunities that are out there to go out and help people with this issue. Police stations, I read a lot about police stations get hacked because another way to infiltrate and hack somebody is through your email, not just your website. And so police stations get emails with links to bad places that infect malware. So that's a lot of why they get hacked.
And also, when a police station gets hacked, and because they keep evidence recorded on their network,
Yes.
any halfway decent defense attorney can make a decent case for the evidence is tainted because the chain of custody is broken.
Yes, can you imagine how much information is lost if they can't get in and see who's been a criminal and check on their background, and they're on trying to tail somebody, and all of a sudden they can't get to any of the information for their file? Now, I'm sure they keep a printed copy of many things, but what is the facial recognition? There's so many different things that it can just take down and halt their progress. It's interesting. So it's very important that they're covered. Homeland Security, if you go to energy.gov, they could declare cybersecurity a national security emergency. Website vulnerabilities. Online threats have increased by as much as 6 times their usual level by Info Security magazine. And an average of 30,000 new websites are hacked every day. So they're busy out there. Online threats have increased as much as 6 times. Okay, that was already there, sorry. The FBI reported 300% increase in the number of cyber crimes during COVID. That makes sense, right? Everybody's inside, isolating, nothing better to do. So it's up about 3,000 to 4,000 cases each day from about 1,000. IBM states cybercrime is the greatest threat to every company in the world. In Q2 of 2019, the common industries that were targeted for ransomware were software services, professional services, healthcare, consumer services, and real estate. And you can see all the other. And I tried to give you a Q2 for 2020. Professional services, you can see, has really gained some clout, and healthcare is still one of the targeted, and we know how important that is. The public sector. Now, those are pretty broad topics. What they don't show in here, and I did read, was that, okay, here's key industries the most vulnerable. Healthcare, still on top, very targeted. IT and telecoms. 5G has really made it so that people in supply chain and people are really vulnerable because of the software. If the software is not up to date, if they're not taking best practices to secure phones and IT infrastructure. The financial industry is getting hit, and so is construction. And most at risk is small businesses. How many small businesses are there in the United States these days? I didn't get that number, but there's a lot. And they duplicated healthcare institutions under most at risk. So that just tells you government agencies, energy, and higher education. With COVID, a lot of this is our infrastructure is at risk just because of the financial system that's broken down, and it opens up everybody to more than just cybersecurity. Our education system is getting really targeted. Think about all of the the information, FAFSA, that our students are going in there, and they have everything on people, right? They have their parents' social security numbers, they have their own social security numbers, they have all their financial data. It's just a huge target. So the growth in ransomware alone and damages from 2015 to 2021 has gone from 325 million to 20 billion worldwide. So the only thing we can do is take one website at a time. And what can we do? Again, we will be happy to email you this 16-point checklist so you don't forget what to secure. 16 tips to reduce your risk of getting hacked. So hopefully this is your answer, Adam, to the question that somebody had regarding backup. And this is just the beginning, but we make sure that all of our software is up to date. And what I wanted to show here is WP Engine is, you find a hosting company that is reputable and targets trying to make WordPress as secure as possible. And WP Engine was created, and they're more expensive. They're about $115 a month versus GoDaddy, which I don't know, I think it's about between $20 and $25 a month. But WP Engine focuses on WordPress for one, and to me, it's a better way to make sure you ensure your assets. So back to the software, we need to make sure that it's updated on WordPress is updated, themes are updated, plugins are updated, and PHP. So it's pretty vital. From my report of my website, you can see that even PHP only 0.02 versions behind, it was still targeted and they were able to infiltrate. So it's pretty important. So plugins. Within WordPress, functionality is built on plugins. So we might have quite a few plugins. It's really important that on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, that we go in there, remove any inactive plugins, get rid of them, even if they're updated. If you're not using them, you're more than likely not going to update them. And that's not good, because as long as they're sitting in your WordPress database, they're creating vulnerability for your WordPress website. And of course, implement a security plugin. And what we recommend, and it's not the only one, but we recommend WordFence. And Steve and I were having a conversation just before everybody joined us, how he has seen that his WordFence is protecting his website from quite a few hacks lately. I've seen customers with WordFence keeping about 2,500 hacks out. I have a customer who's in the construction business, and he gets a lot of traffic from all over the world, and it's interesting to see how many times they try to log into his website. The login information, so brute force is what we call it. So if you see brute force, you'll know what that means, is that the hacker is trying to find out what your login information and get into your website. So in order to combat this, what we need to do is create usernames that are more secure than admin. Admin comes as a default username for WordPress, and we need to change that immediately before we go into production, if that's possible. Create unique and strong passwords. There's several types of programs out there. You can generate really tough passwords. And again, Tom mentioned one program, LastPass, helps you remember these. Eliminate users that no longer are with your organization. Now, this might seem crazy, but you never know. You never know if someone is doing something deliberately or inadvertently, but you can always add them back in. So get rid of any users that are no longer with you. And another thing that's really been important lately, I'm not sure if you've seen this with your banking, but two-factor authentication or multiple factor authentication is really key here to keeping people out. Who uses 2FA or MFA? Anybody? Not even on your banking account? You might want to consider that.
A lot of our customers use that.
Yeah.
And there are there are various different kinds. A lot of them are through cell phones. There are various gadgets you can get that
Right.
do it.
Yes, it's so important. It didn't used to be this important, but it is now. And it's really important to have SSL installed on the website. It's not the only reason that it's going to. I had SSL installed on my website, and still the fact that my PHP was not up to date was the key issue as to why I got hacked. But this is really important to buy it. I know some people know how to do this free. And that's fantastic. But there's also hosting companies that have SSL for purchase, and for 50 to 60 bucks a year, it's so worth it. And then install it on your website. Because you know what? This also, it's not just for websites that have credit cards anymore. SSL encrypts the information when your visitor comes to your website. And when the host company is sending the information to your browser, what's happening is in between there, if it's not SSL, then a hacker can get in between that communication and they can install some kind of malware
Carol,
even then. Yes.
I just also to let you know that there are, I mean, I know you probably know, but there's also companies that offer free SSL. And there are companies like website hosting companies that actually have you pay for the SSL, but there's, again, you can slide over to the free SSLs that do just as good as a paid SSL certificates.
Thank you for that, but I'd like to talk to you about that because I've never done it myself and I'm not sure I want to, because does that mean that you have to keep up to date on the coding for the SSL or what that is?
Can I address that? So what happened is that a nonprofit consortium called Let's Encrypt was formed by some very large companies. And the Let's Encrypt system, which is leased by providers. So for example, my provider, SiteGround, has a deal with Let's Encrypt. You then apply the Let's Encrypt to your website. It creates a free SSL certificate that's automatically renewed every 3 months. You don't have to do anything. And the SSL certificate is just as good as any other. They're all the same. So
Yeah.
I've always recommended to customers to work, if possible, with it's. You don't do it directly. You're right, Carol, that if you had to do it directly, you'd have to go in and mess around with it.
Yeah.
If you're using a provider that has the deal with Let's Encrypt, and WP Engine probably does. I don't know if they do, but most do. One of the few that doesn't is GoDaddy, which has such a cash cow with SSL certificates that they don't tell people. I just think it's kind of unethical to know that there's a free service and to not offer it to your customers, which GoDaddy does.
Yes.
But it is exactly the same SSL certificate. There's nothing better or worse by
Okay.
using Let's Encrypt.
Tom mentioned that you had mentioned that this exists, and I'd love to have that conversation with you, but I want to see what it entails because if I agree, GoDaddy, you know, they're so inexpensive. That's partly why they charge for SSL, and most people probably don't know how to code it or how to maintain it. So it's just easier to pay them. Plus, that's their way of making up for the fact that their hosting is so inexpensive, probably, or one of the ways, right?
This is a whole, I think, I don't want to interrupt the flow as you say, but I think it's a fascinating conversation we've had here before about these different companies and their pros and cons.
Sure.
And so the SSL certificate is a really interesting area.
This is true. WP Engine, now, like I said, they're $115 a month, but they offer, like, I can put 10 websites on that hosting, and they do have free SSL.
Yep, great.
It's a matter of how they price it out, I guess.
Yep.
So here's my answer to the long ago chat question, I guess. Backup. Yes, definitely need backup, every website. So Updraft Plus is a great plugin with WordPress. And I'm a huge WordPress user, so there's so many different, anybody that you talk to that's a WordPress person has different opinions, and there's all sorts of options. But the fact that you're backing up your database is what's really important. So whatever you're comfortable with as far as a backup, and check to see that it is one of the markets favored, because you want to work with one of the top 3, I would say.
Carol, we did this morning actually in our web class, and I just wanted to make a plug for the way Updraft works is that it makes a backup to the very same server that the website lives on. And so it has a feature where you can download the backup to your own system, which I strongly recommend. And in checking the integrity of the backup, one of the things that we do is we go into the WordPress database and open it up and see if it makes sense. Like we do a quick look at it to make sure that it looks like it worked right.
Agreed. And Updraft Plus, now it allows you to automatically back up to many locations, which is a key thing here, which I didn't list here, but multiple location backup is really important. Like you said, if you're backing up to the server that's getting hacked, you know, you still have some vulnerability there. Updraft will allow you to send it to, we use Dropbox. Okay. So I do a lot of Dropbox backup, and to your own computer, but that can get really, you know, take up a lot of space on your computer after a while. because for me, I'm updating my website quite often, so I back it up every week. So that means 4 times a month there's a backup, and it's including the database, the files, the folders, some good sized files. Okay, so thank you. Updraft Plus is really, I think it's really good. And one of the key
I'll
things,
just make one more plug here. I totally affirm you're using Dropbox, but because we're protecting against, and this actually addresses Tom's using KeePass as his password database. One thing we've noted here at BNUG is that KeePass is one of the few password databases that is not on the web. It's a local password database product.
okay,
And given that we're talking about people who are targeting us from other countries, right? That's what this is all about. It's like these creepy people who are doing this crazy thing.
Yeah.
Having a copy of your website physically on your computer and on a hard drive that you keep in a closet is a beautiful thing, because it means that no matter what these silly people do, no matter what ransomware they throw at you, you've
Right.
got a hard drive in your closet, and even they can't reach that.
right. Not so far anyway, but yes, I agree.
That's next. The teleporter beam.
Okay, at the server level, now this requires that you log in through FTP, so you have to have an FTP user account, but file permissions and folder permissions have, and WP config, I'm sorry, I spelled that wrong, wp-config.php. These file permissions should be set at 644, folder permissions at 755, and WP config is at 600. And what that means is whether or not you can read, write, and execute. And also the folder permissions, if you don't do this at the server level, what happens is hackers know how to get into these folders from, well, they can tell if your folders are vulnerable and open to view. And most people don't know how to do that, but if you're a hacker, you do know, because they know WordPress inside and out, maybe more than any one of us, hate to say. So this is really important, and this keeps them from going into our directories and just deleting files, which is the worst thing that could happen. It's not as bad as they insert files of their own, because you can easily find them and delete them. But if they start deleting our files, then we can be in big trouble, especially if they're deleting WordPress files, which is really bad. Okay, so more things: turn off directory browsing, turn off image hot linking, and protect sensitive files. So image hot linking is when someone goes to your website, finds out where you store your image, and uses that URL to show your image on their website. And what that does is like a traffic. It uses so much memory from your hosting company that it slows down your website. And so you have to make sure that people can't use your images. That's no longer something good to do. Make sense to anybody? Anybody ever have that happen? No. Okay, good so far. And this takes a little bit of coding. Now there's some files that are on the file server that you need to know about. htaccess for one, and you can take care of both of these off directory, turn off directory browsing and image hot linking within there, but you need to know how to do some coding. So it's really important to leave it up to somebody who knows what they're doing. And 14 and 15, continuously monitor. So set up malware scans and check we check every week to see if a site is blacklisted. And again, Security is fantastic. It has other things that you can do to SiteCheck. It's a little bit more expensive as a scanner, but it's kind of like McAfee, right? If we didn't have McAfee on our computers, it's just crazy. So it's worth the money. Deflecting DDoS, high traffic blasts. And that's what DDoS basically is when bots or any other kind of program just throws traffic at your website, and it slows it down to the point where nobody can see any of your pages, or nobody can get to your website. So it's bad. So WordFence and Cloudflare can both help with that. We use WordFence for both DDoS and keeping
I was really impressed by Cloudflare. One of our customers used it.
Mhm.
And their setup was very clever. Like the way you set it up, you don't have to give it any information. You just say, Cloudflare, here's my website, take care of me. And it figures out all your DNS stuff. It figures that all out, puts it in Cloudflare. It was impressive.
WordFence does a lot like that too. I mean, I'm not sure if it's exactly the same, but it does put your website into a learning mode for the first week to see how your website is set up. And then after that, it starts telling you how to best secure it. So it's very helpful. So, continuously scanning and remove. Make sure you have SSL, remove unnecessary logins, create better logins, create strong passwords, set proper file permissions and folder permissions, block hot linking, disable comments, backup regularly, multiple locations, set up lockdown features, two-factor authentication. This requires, when you've been blacklisted, and you can see, remember when we had the list of pages that had bad characters on them, you have to resubmit your website with Google. So you have to fix all of that first on your website, and then create another sitemap, and then submit it to Google. And then Google takes about a week to decide whether or not your site is worthy of being back on the indexed. And then you start working all over again. All that organic search engine ranking that you've had is, you're trying to catch up to where you were before you got hacked. And oftentimes hiring a professional is the best and fastest way to get fixed. So take warning signs seriously. This is a tough lesson I learned, and this is what I'm on my mission to help make sure every other business is not going to get hacked, or if you have, and you're not going to get hacked in the future. Have a plan. It's an ongoing plan, and execute that plan. So it's your business. What is your website security plan? So look for somebody who knows plans, policies, procedures, understands cybersecurity, has experience with website development. We don't usually secure sites that are not WordPress because we know WordPress so well, and we've helped people come back with HTML files, HTML websites, but we don't secure them because there's too many other things that keep them at risk. So we're on WordPress itself. Somebody who knows how to do problem solving. This is technical aptitude. You really need to be a technical person. Because someone said, backup? Like sometimes backups don't work as well as you like them to. And you have to know what you're looking for, what really needs to be done. Knowledge of security is across platforms. Detail. You can see how many different things went wrong. You need attention to detail. Communication. You need to be able to talk to your client and say, here's what's happening now. Here's what we're going to do to fix it. Here's what you might lose, but here's what we're going to do and what you're going to come out looking like on the other end once we're done fixing this task. Okay, so people that know fundamental computer forensics, it's an ongoing thing. So it's not a one-time learn and you're done. It's just, you have to keep up with it. And there's some great website authorities that's what they focus on and have a desire to learn. This is a client that had a website, and 2 years later, he had to come back to me and say, Carol, my website got hacked on GoDaddy. They took my website. No, I'm sorry, it wasn't GoDaddy. They took my website down. I needed to rebuild it. So, double whammy. That was worth about $10,000. And so we have a plan that helps you protect, keeping all the versions of the software up to date, making sure the site is cleared and optimized, the plugins are monitored and updated, scanning for login attempts and keeping them out. And you can keep hackers out. Once they you can see who's coming to your site and trying to log in. And if they use certain names, you can say, you're going to use that name again? You're not getting in here ever because that name doesn't exist as a user. So hackers and spam is denied, weekly backups, and restore points. And we have a monthly report that is sent to all of our clients that tells you what we've done every day of this week. Whatever a software update occurs and we're on it, that. And so it's really important to let them know. Our security plan is $89 a month. If there's no contract, if you have more than one website, then there is a discount. And anybody who wants this for their customers or yourself can go through Tom. And hit the web marketing just to show you a couple of things that we do in marketing methodology. Our professional services include training. We're developing a Get Your Blog Done course right now, which is about blogging and how to optimize. So how to write your content and write with evoke emotions and optimize it for search engines. So you have to have that balance. So we help with that. We do video training. We do live marketing, which is my preference, but with COVID, we've had to do over Zoom. It's a good solution. Marketing consulting and coaching. So if there's anybody who needs to decide what kind of strategy you should have for your particular organization, we can help you with that. And that includes project management, content strategy, website development, types of, like I said, social media, when to post, where to post to get to your best audience, that kind of thing. So thank you. That's what I have. Any questions?
I have a WordPress site that I maintain for my local community theater.
Okay.
And I've experimented with some of the backup plugins, and they can be a little frustrating. They seem sometimes, maybe I'm just using the free versions, but they time out. So my basic question of backup for a WordPress site is, it seems to me that there's two chunks. There's the WordPress, I forget the acronym, the database.
Yeah.
And then there's all those files, folders, subfolders. If I download those two things to my computer, using my the database from my, I can access through my hosting company.
Right.
And the files and folders I can access through an FTP client and download basically a zip file. If I have those two lumps, have I backed up my WordPress site?
Well, you said database, files, and folders?
Yeah, and part one is database, part two is files and folders.
Yeah, that should be sufficient. Now, are you doing this by manually? Because I totally recommend.
Yeah, I agree that other things are more convenient, but sometimes they time out, give me errors, whereas when I'm downloading the database, it's a couple of clicks. When I'm downloading the files and folders, it's a couple of clicks. So yes, it's manual, but it works.
Okay, well, so you might have a plugin that's working, that's probably taking up a lot of CPU, I'll say, because I have WordFence and I have another plugin that caches so that it kind of works as a CDN, so it speeds up the website. But when you're trying to modify your website, it's making it really slow. So it does exactly what you're saying. So you might turn off some plugins while you're in there working, do your backup, and then turn them back on. Because
you're saying the cause for the timeout might be a plugin or combination.
Right.
Okay, well, thank you. That helps.
CBN.
Pardon me?
You said CDN?
CDN, yeah, like Cloudflare does. CDN helps speed up your website.
Does it have is it an abbreviation for something?
Yeah, Charlie, Data, Nancy, content, something.
Delivery network.
Thank you.
I sent you an email this afternoon.
Thank you.
Yeah, I take it to be if you want to speed up the delivery of your website, you have a CDN, but you're not required to have one.
Depending on your website. If you have a lot, like I have over 100 pages. And so I have over 100 images. And so with all that going on, and every page has more than one image sometimes, because I'm teaching people how to do things within a blog, and I'll have several images that are, laying things out. And that's just makes a large file. But so CDN is important. But like I said, it might not be that. It could just be that another plugin is taking up a lot of resources. I also developed using the Divi theme, and the Divi theme has gotten so big that it also takes up a lot of resources and slows things down. Yeah, what kind of themes does everybody use? Do you know? What do you like?
So Carol, one thing to be aware of is that some people in this group use WordPress sites and know the vocabulary of WordPress, but many don't. So I thought in the second half, it might be helpful to go back a little bit for people who are not as familiar with WordPress and unpack some of the words that you've been using. For example, the word theme, I think, is something that people may not be aware of. Carol, could you just say a few words about what a theme is and what it has to do with WordPress security?
Okay, so WordPress has several different components, right? WordPress is the content management system. So that's like the backbone of your website. And then you'll have themes. Themes help you create a layout. It helps you design the website. So it helps you determine where the navigation is, where the images are, how it looks, your branding colors. And you only have one theme. Now, this is one thing thank you for bringing that up. When you have a WordPress website, you should only have your main theme. Like I use Divi, so that's my main theme, and a backup. Because if Divi has problems and I need something else to go to, I can go in there and select my other theme and make that my design layout. Okay, so that's what a theme is, basically the design layout. Does that make sense? Adam, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I do, because it's not, the thing that's peculiar about themes, bear with me, what I'm actually trying to do is put up an example for people to see. The thing to understand about a theme that I just want to make sure everyone understands, this is actually the Boston Network Users Group website that we're working on today. And when you create a website in WordPress, WordPress has a whole, WordPress is like a culture. And what's developed in WordPress is a free service, but it leads to, like Linux, it leads to a whole bunch of paid services. So when Steve and Tom led the creation of this website, they chose a theme. And down here, if you look at the bottom, can everyone see this where it says theme Sella by WordPress.com? Can you see that?
Yes.
I'm gonna make it a little bit bigger. Control plus expands a website, so now we can't miss it. So WordPress.com actually is a commercial company that gives away WordPress, but then makes money by providing things like themes. Now, Steve, did you and Tom pay for this theme, or is it free?
Free.
Yeah, so some themes are free, and WordPress does that just to get people in the game. But you'll find that a theme is not just a layout. It's actually the whole environment of the website. So what Steve and Tom found when they worked on this website, which I really like, is they found there were various kinds of restrictions on their choices about what kind of headers to have, what kind of menus they could have, what kind of fonts they could use. All of that is woven into the theme. So you can change your theme, and then you'll have a whole different set of layouts, and you can pay for a theme and then get technical support and frequent upgrades. I don't know what your position is on this, Carol, but when Kim Reddington came and talked about WordPress, her WordPress practice, she said she never uses a free theme because she feels that it won't get the support that a paid theme gets, and therefore from a security standpoint is a real problem. Do you agree with that?
I do. I use Divi and I pay for it. I have a lifetime membership, and you're right. It's for one, because WordPress is open source, which means it's free and anybody's coding it, but you're more likely to have a support team, and you're more likely to have people updating the components. So security is not, what do you call it? Compromised. So yes, it pays to have putting out some money for a theme.
So
Now,
you can see that this Divi theme that Carol's using has all kinds of really fancy features that she's paying for. Can you give us some idea of the money involved, Carol?
It's really not that expensive. I think I paid $200 for a lifetime membership.
And does that mean you can use it on any of your customers?
I sure can. Yes, I can. And then, of course, they have components and modules that and child themes that you can pay additional money to get, but there are core things that are free with that lifetime membership. And you have access to other people that are using. So you have a knowledge base. If people are experiencing similar things, you go in here and it's terrific connection.
So this is an example of the Divi builder. So if you're using the Divi theme, you get to go in here and you can create. So notice it's got like different sections of the screen, and you can change the font, you can change the what's writing. Notice here you've got a whole bunch of gadgets that you can use. You can change to italics, for example, as I just did. You can center things or move everything to the left, just like you can in Word. And it lets you have these different headers. And I'm sure you use all kinds of Do you do e-commerce as well? Is that part of the theme, or is that something different?
That would be a WooCommerce component you would add.
You have like a plugin, right?
Yes.
Uh-huh. So I think what Martin, if I've understood Martin's question, was about backing up. When you back up, there are several components to the backup, and I can show you in our WordPress site. One of the nice things about us doing a WordPress site is that it lets us use it as an educational tool. This is our WordPress site, the BNUG WordPress site. And you'll notice that this is called the dashboard. And all WordPress sites have this. I know all Carol's does. They all have this dashboard. And this is where the plugins go. So if you go down here, it's a plug, a little picture of a plug. This tells us what plugins we have installed.
Right.
And this is where Carol can tell us if we're getting into trouble here. So we're using, for example, this is a WordPress plugin called Akismet, which if you have a blog and you let people post, Akismet notices, I don't know if other people have had this experience, but one of the, Carol's talking about malicious hacking that for money or for doing really terrible things, but there's a sort of mild hacking, which you'd call more graffiti, which is if you have a blog, you'll have this nice blog talking about BNUG and how important, helping each other with computers are. And some silly person will post something about Viagra on your blog, which you obviously don't want, is totally irrelevant, or they'll just post nonsense. So Kismet protects against that by detecting this in various ways and making it harder for people to behave that way. And there are a bunch of other gadgets here, but the one that I want to, while we're here, since we were talking about backup, I want to address Martin's question, work with Carol to address Martin's question. This is Updraft, which is the free version of Updraft. And we're going to go into settings here.
You need to update your calendar.
Yeah, I saw that.
Wait, hold on, Carol, what are you saying?
You need to update your calendar. It's a version update.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's take this as a poster child here.
I'm just
So
kidding.
this calendar has a new version, and you're saying that even though this is just a calendar, it's like not a big important thing. You're saying that if we don't update it, we put ourselves at risk?
That's what I'm saying. Because
Okay.
hackers are going to say, "Oh, look at this plugin. They're not up to date. That means I know how to get in this back door." And they in that back door. And thank you for mentioning the blog. So one thing about blogs is wonderful to be able to have a collaboration online. But what's happening is, I didn't mention this because I didn't want to use too much geek speak, but SQL injections. And what they can do is, instead of filling out your form, they're putting SQL commands into your form. And they can do so much damage with that if they know, and then using SQL. They're not just entering phone numbers and addresses and emails. They're just putting in commands that could actually ruin your database.
Only if the blog is able to accept SQL commands. If it's interpreting the input by way of maybe this is SQL, then they can be injecting.
So yes, so if you have it set up so it's not.
Wait a minute, hold on. Does it, Geek Alert, does everyone understand what this discussion is yet?
Can I attempt to put this into English?
Yeah, let's translate into Swedish. and
So
then
what they're talking about is there's a form on your website, whether it's a contact form or a blog comment. There's
Can
a
you
place
give
people
an
can type
example?
in text.
And Martin, can you give us an example of a website that might have that?
I'm sorry, I'm having trouble hearing you.
Can you give an example of a website we could look at that would have a form where you enter
Oh,
something?
well, just go to any, right there. I mean, Google, there's a form.
Okay.
There's a box you can type stuff.
Okay, so we're going to type in Martin Kadansky.
No. Adam, let me
Go ahead.
speak what I'm trying to speak. This could be a search box. This could be a contact form. This could be a blog comment. A form is just a bunch of things you can type into, maybe also some checkbox. The point that they're making is, you and I think of this as you type in text and the thing processes that text. The problem is, behind the scenes, that text may be handed off to what you might think of as batch files or command lines. So if that text is not properly quoted, it could be another batch file command, a SQL Server command. It might say, delete every entry in your database, or turn every entry in your database into hi there. So if your form processing doesn't properly quote the text or recognize it as malicious and ignore it, then this is like somebody sticking their nose through your mail slot and, setting your house on fire. So forms need to be properly protected, and there's all kinds of forms, which means you have to be aware of all kinds of protection. Carol, is that a reasonable summary?
I think that's good. So, I mean, I'm concerned because I don't even have my comments on my blog anymore because I got tired of getting just a bunch of junk. And most of the time they comment and it's a link to Viagra sites. So I've turned off comments. And Adam and I want to have a conversation about SQL injections because I'm concerned about my forms not having enough. If you have forms that have validation, so field validations, but I don't.
They have an example here on this website. Portswigger has a description of this attack. So what they're saying is that if you go to a shopping application that was poorly designed, so it displays different products, and when the user clicks on the gifts category because they want to give a present to somebody, their browser sends this to the website. Products, quote, this is SQL language, products, question mark, category equals gifts. It then creates the SQL query. The back end creates the SQL query and creates this SQL. Just for people who haven't used SQL, it's the database processing language. And this is a very classic example of select from the products database where the category equals gifts. So it's going to retrieve all the gifts, all the gift possibilities and put it on the screen. But here's the fun part. They automatically, when you ask to look at gifts, they in their code add this phrase because they don't want you to see unreleased products that they haven't tested or products that are about to go on sale. So they say only show gifts that are released, but you are clever and you want to see the unreleased ones. So what you do is you put in the query products question mark category equals gifts quote dash dash. You're adding quote dash dash to the word gifts. You're very clever. And the result is that because they don't scan their SQL query properly, they issue to their database this command. Well, this is a very clever trick because in the SQL language, dash dash means comment, which means the remaining part of this SQL is left out. And so what gets passed to their database engine is select from products where category equals gifts, period. And the result is all the non-released gifts will show as well, which just gives you kind of a flavor of what damage you could do by messing with the language that you're passing to the database engine.
So Adam, this is not, I mean, anytime you accept any input, it's not just SQL. You can do other cross-site scripting injections and implement JavaScript. And it's all about parsing the input fields and making sure there's not any malicious activity trying to be going on.
Right. And so, hold on, I just want to respond then, Steve. So there is a hint here, which I think is echoing something Carol was saying, which is if you're accepting input to your database, you'd be very wise to get some help because this clearly requires some really special skills to do this kind of parsing successfully. You really need to be skilled in knowing what kind of tricks people know about passing stuff to your database before you let anyone send stuff, before you start sending stuff to your database, your backend database. This is a highly technical aspect of handling a WordPress site. WordPress is a SQL database.
Right.
I want to emphasize this. WordPress looks like just your basic website design program. It's not. It's a SQL database. That's how all the text in your WordPress site is handled. Ooh. And so all these injection attacks and SQL scammy things apply to WordPress in big time. And so an awareness of this just seems really important to handling a WordPress site. Carol, do you want to add some to that?
No, I think you did a great job. SQL, I don't see him on the screen now. Who was just telling us about SQL? Who was explaining that?
Well, it was me, Peter. I mean, the other aspect about why you keep your plugins up to date, because you guys have been around for a while, software has bugs. And those bugs have vulnerabilities. And if you don't do that, people know about the vulnerabilities and then try to take advantage of those. So by not keeping your plugins up to date, by not keeping your themes up to date, and what else? And WordPress, right? WordPress is built off of what we just mentioned is PHP. PHP is it's not a compiled language. It's a, what do you call that? It's like Python.
Interpreted.
Interpreted, thank you. Interpreted language. And very easy to in my eyes, pretty easy to program.
So
regarding updates, I had a quick comment.
Yeah, please, John. Please, Martin.
To me, there's a tension between there's a tension between keeping up to date, but not rushing to update something that was released like 2 hours ago. When I maintain my community theater's WordPress website, my nominal policy, I go to the plugins page, I see there's 7 plugins that are out of date. I look at each one and read the release notes. And if it was released any earlier than a week ago, I leave it for next week. I don't like taking plugin updates that are days or hours, before right now, because that makes me super nervous about, have they really tested it? Is it really compatible? I'd rather have it get percolated or seasoned before I take it. So Carol, where do you come down on that conflict?
Okay, well, that makes me nervous because what you can do is do your backup. And, you're bringing up something that's very plausible here. When you do updates, any kind of updates, right? Something may not be compatible with others. You can go to, within WordPress, you can go to the plugin area and you can actually do a search on your plugin and it'll tell you if it's compatible with your current version of WordPress. So it eliminates some of the things that you're talking about, Martin. So whether or not you're worried about it being compatible with your website.
Martin,
well, the other thing I ran into was a PHP compatibility. I had not, for various reasons, gone to the latest PHP, and the write-up for the plugin that broke my website didn't mention specifically, and there was no warning when I clicked update that it required a newer PHP than I had.
Oh my!
It took me hours to figure out. So that's another, it could have told me, and plugins have a minimum WordPress and a minimum PHP. Why didn't it stop and say, you might not want to take this one because it may break your site because of PHP incompatibility.
Can I just interrupt for a second and say, Martin, when your site broke, how did you know it was broken?
Blank screen.
I just want to emphasize this to everybody. When something goes wrong with WordPress, it's not just usually a typo. So WordPress is a very delicate animal. And what I've found is that when something goes wrong, it often goes wrong in the scariest way, which is the site becomes completely white. It's called the white screen of death. And it's really scary, especially to the customer who's paid good money to have a WordPress site and suddenly people go to it and there's nothing but white there. And the only thing that happened was somebody did something, like Martin in this case. So let's go down Martin's memory lane here and experience his emotional turmoil. So suppose you're here, you've got a plugin, right? Carol, how do we know what PHP version we're running? Where do I go for that?
Well, you can't really tell here. You have to go to the hosting side and you have to, if you have PHP compatibility plugin, you might be able to see from here, but I usually go to the server. What, Martin, do you have another way?
Yes, there's a plugin for that.
What's the plugin?
PHP compatibility, you can do that, but I'm usually on the hosting side and you can easily see it there.
Yeah, there's at least one plugin that I found that it will show on your dashboard the version of PHP that you're using to save you a trip to your hosting.
You know what it's called, Martin?
You have to give me a minute to look it up.
Martin, can I just say one thing? Be careful to use that because they say security will tell you if you leave. I don't know if that plugin does this because I don't use it, but the plugin that you're talking about, if it leaves the version of your PHP out on your website and then hackers can tell what version you have, they'll know what vulnerabilities your website has. So you got to be careful using that.
I believe it shows it on the dashboard, not on the front-facing user site.
Well, I just installed this version info, fellow. I'm noticing this has got 10,000 plus activations. This is a reputable fellow. So now the version info plugin is in place. Let's try it out.
What version are you at?
We're gonna find out in just a second.
Oh, didn't say.
I haven't been there yet. It was, the one I just installed was called version info. I'm not seeing it on this list.
Adam, if you're looking for its result, you should go to the dashboard, not the plugin list.
I'm trying to go to the dashboard. I'm just.
Oh,
having trouble.
sorry, Carol, I have a question. If people are really concerned about, upgrading plugins and stuff like that, and you have money, well, I know WordPress Engines, I thought, does this. They have a dev site and then a production site.
Right.
That gives you the ability to test things on the dev site before you roll it out to production.
Can you just, the whole site is that way, not just a page, but the whole thing?
What?
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, it's a whole separate installation.
So Martin, I'm at the dashboard. Do you
Well, I can't speak for the plugin you just downloaded, but if you just do a page search. No, you're not. Yeah, just do a page search for PHP and see if it's listed. Don't look with your eyes. Just use your browser search.
the whole browser search.
Yeah, just Control F. Yeah, just PHP and then walk down. Oh, there it is. See, there you go.
Where am I? Oh, here we
At
go.
the bottom of the screen.
We're running WordPress 5.6,
And PHP.
7.4.24, and MySQL 5.7.
Okay, so that's even more. Yeah, the one I found is called Display PHP version,
Mhm.
which does a similar thing only on the dashboard, not on the front facing site. It happens to do it higher up, but it's equivalent concept.
Okay, so now this PHP version, how do we know if it's good or not? Like if it's up to date enough? Is there a way of knowing that?
Carol, I think you're muted.
The
I believe
PHP version
7.4 is pretty recent.
is related to what your hosting company gives you for availability. Different hosting companies may not be running the latest and greatest, I found out.
So we're getting a hint from Martin that when we're adding a plugin, we should check to find out, since now we know this magic number. PHP is the basic environment where the whole program's running. PHP is the language that WordPress is written in.
Well,
So-
PHP and JavaScript, both of those are requirements.
Thank you. I didn't know about JavaScript.
When I contemplated converting my Drama Club's website from a standard HTML to WordPress, I realized that, my old HTML site, from 15 years ago, didn't even use JavaScript. It was very simple and very fast, but not mobile responsive, et cetera, et cetera. So one of the things I had to decide was, does my population have any issues with JavaScript being on in their browser? So there's some decisions when you start with WordPress, and a lot of people think they're moot, but I think they're important to at least think about. Does your population, are they willing to have JavaScript on in their browser? Because the user can turn that off, and then your WordPress site just ceases to function.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
I found a little bit of HTML code that I put in the header of my WordPress site for the Drama Club that puts up some red text saying, hey, JavaScript is off. This ain't going to work. But WordPress by default doesn't do that.
And the events calendar, what I'm a little bit puzzled by is the events calendar was telling us to update, but now it's not telling us that anymore.
Because I fixed it.
You did.
I see. So you did an update. I'm noticing, Steve, at the top, before I had noticed on this line, it said update available, and there was one. And so that's gone now because you updated the events calendar.
Yes.
So,
I don't mess around. I get things done.
but Steve, did you hear what Martin's warning?
Technically, you should have backed up the entire site before you did that.
Well, we did that this morning. But I think what we want to note is that it's important to get things done. But this is the tension that we all feel. All of us computer people feel all the time. And I want to just generalize this. It's not just about WordPress. It's about Windows. It's about all programs. Do you update the BIOS? Like when do you do an update? And I think it's a complicated question. I don't think there's an easy answer to this. Just because something says you should update it doesn't mean you should. For example, I often will, when calling Dell with a repair problem, I'll say we're having this problem. They'll say, oh, we'll update the BIOS. Well, they can be updating the BIOS, and if the power goes out in the middle, our computer is trashed. So there are risks involved in updating, and you have to take those risks into account. So one of the things Martin was suggesting, and I think it's a really good idea, is before we update a plugin, it's probably wise to find out what the constraints are on the plugin. So what Martin experienced, Steve, is that he had a plugin which he just hit the update button, and it took the whole site down because that particular plugin doesn't work in the particular PHP his provider was providing.
Okay, well, let me ask Carol one question. That PSP program
Steve,
plugin that.
before you ask the question, could you acknowledge what I'm saying?
Yes, Adam.
No, do you understand what the suggestion I'm making?
Yes, I know to do the backup before the,
Thanks. One is the backup, but I think Martin was suggesting something else, which is research the plugin. Make sure that when you do the update, that the plugin can handle the environment where the new plugin, because you're updating something. This is a classic computer problem. If you update something that's too advanced for your computer, it can cause you problems. So you should be aware of what the update parameters are for the particular thing. So Martin, if you had to do this over again, how would you have researched that?
what about my question?
We'll get to it, Steve. Be patient.
Well, I mean, there's a tension here between just getting stuff done and being a little cavalier versus maybe batching your work and doing 4 or 5 updates together versus backing up every single time. But generally speaking, right where on the screen where you are, although you can't see it right now because you're now up to date. When you have a plugin that has an update available, there's a little thing you can click that says, tell me more about the plugin. And you land on the plugin's web page, which you can go to separately on the WordPress home site. Yeah. And every developer is a little different as to how they list the information. Some will tell you, here's the latest version of the plugin, here's the change log, but you may have to dig a little bit to say what PHP does it require, what version of PHP. So there's no real even standard, from plugin to plugin as to how well it's documented. So, but on the other hand, if you have a stable set of plugins, you can make your own little chart that you can remind yourself, okay, this plugin, it's on the About Me page. This plugin, it's 8 levels deep. So it's not easy. It's not super consistent.
So I think before we get to this question, I think the takeaway I'm taking away from this is going to the plugins page. Here's a Kismet's page. It notes that what version it's currently on, when it was last updated, the version of WordPress it requires, how compatible it is with newer versions of WordPress, and a sense of how many people are using it successfully, which is also pretty useful. There's a
where's the minimum PHP? I don't see it.
I didn't see that either. So I think the lesson here is definitely that updates are important, but you doing them with care, as with other programs, is part of the craftsmanship of looking after a website. Steve, go ahead.
So my question was for Carol. Do we really need that PSP plugin that Adam just put on there? Yes or no, please? How do you feel about that?
Sorry, Carol, you're muted.
Yeah.
I am one that feels if it doesn't need a plugin, you shouldn't use it. So if I wouldn't put it on because I know how to find the version on the hosting side, but if it's more easy for you to figure it out here, it probably is fine. You don't have too many plugins right now. And
all right.
They seem to be compatible. So
I'm also fine with removing this plugin now that we have the information that we need. Like you could turn on this plugin just to get the info and then turn it off. In fact, if you deactivate a plugin, Carol, is that safe?
Say that again.
So this plugin, which I'm actually having trouble finding, but this plugin, if you deactivate a plugin,
yes.
Do you consider that safe, or do you think it needs to be removed to be safe?
Deactivating to me is like not upgrading it. You're leaving it in there because you're more than likely not gonna update it if it's not activated, and so you're leaving yourself open. So I would say get rid of it if you're not using it now.
Because what it says here is integration plugin between WordPress and PHP BB. It provides free integration. Users transfer logins, register, easy and light, secure, and powerful.
I'm sorry, Adam. What's the name of this plugin?
WordPress W3ALL PHP BB integration.
Wait, I'm sorry, Adam, what's the name of the plugin you just added?
That's what I'm a little puzzled by. I thought it was called version. Let me see if I can find it.
Oh, there is a version one here, info too.
PHP version. I thought it had the word PHP. Yeah, it's not big enough. I thought it had the word version in it.
Well, how about
Yes.
you just search for PHP?
I have it right here in front of me.
Oh, here it is. It's called WordPress version info.
Okay, thank you.
So what we could easily do is simply remove this.
Yes.
Now that we got.
I want to take a look at this. I want to take a look at this plugin, Adam. So
Well, feel free.
before you remove it.
Okay, why don't we leave it in? And you feel free to delete it. We're doing an exercise, so we're learning about stuff. So feel free. I kind of like this minimalist approach that Carol's using, which is don't put in a plugin unless you really need it.
So a question I have for Carol, or in general, is in WordPress 5.5, I think, they came up with automatic updates. And what have you been doing with automatic updates?
I don't use automatic updates because I like the control, like Martin was just mentioning. I like to go in and update one thing at a time. And what if I'm updating a plugin and then they automatically update WordPress? So I'll know when you're notified anyways when WordPress is updated. So I'd rather do it manually.
Well, I'm just saying on the plugins, not automatic update in WordPress. There's certain plugins that I'm like, oh, I feel safe with this plugin, so I've enabled it. No, I don't do it across the board.
Oh, you can choose certain plugins to do automatic update?
Yeah.
Yes, I see that. You see, does everyone see this? I'm sorry, let me go back.
It's a new feature in WordPress, I think, as of 5.5.
I just saw that. So what it is it's a list of plugins. So we have 9 of these enabled. And so the automatic since these are, I think this is a list of the one that's set by automatic. Yeah, see where it has a button, disable automatic updates? So under automatic updates, we have the option of, for some of these, it's enabled. For example, it's enabled for Google Analytics. I'm a little confused by what this means. In blue, it says disable automatic updates.
Right, it means it's enabled.
But why does this one say auto updates enabled?
Oh,
Isn't that weird?
I don't know what it says. Manage auto updates.
Let's see what that is.
So let me ask. Let me go back a little bit because I do want to answer one question that was answered to me, and this is for Steven Eisenberg. To let you know, Steve, we only currently on the BNUG website. We only have currently 3 administrative users on the BNUG website. Myself, Tom, and Adam. That's it. Everybody else has no way of getting into the website without my knowing about it.
Okay, that's good. I just wanted to make sure it's more than one person.
Yeah,
Thank
that's important. So under automatic updates, we have this, now we're set to say do them, including major updates. That's seems to be the default for this system. This seems to be part of what's called monster. And so the automatic updates, I think, apply only to Google. It seems like Google Analytics has its own update system, but everybody else has either automatic updates enabled, like a Kismet is set with automatic updates, meaning that's why I was a little puzzled because Steve and Tom, you haven't been going in and updating every week, right?
I'm keeping a constant eye on the site itself, and I check in maybe a couple times a week at least. You know, when I can get in there, just get in and check it.
But did you understand my question? I was asking, do you go in every week and go around to all these different plugins and update them?
No.
So this is kind of my point. The way your website is set up, automatic updates is turned on for 9 of the items. And for 11 of the items, it's turned off. And so that's why the one that you came across, what was the one you updated? The calendar?
Yeah.
That's why the calendar was one of those that had the automatic update turned off. Now, Carol, you're saying you don't use any automatic updates at all, right?
I don't use automatic updates. And the only thing I do is backups. That's automatic.
So,
But as far as WordPress, PHP, plugins, I'll do it because I want to see what's going on when I update them.
got it. Okay. So right now we're doing a bit of a hybrid. It sounds like some of these are disabled and some of them are enabled. And so here are the ones that are disabled. So these guys, for some reason, we don't have the automatic update turned on. I don't know what the pattern is here.
So Adam, what I noticed on the other list, the ones that were enabled, it looked like most of them were simply binary, either it's on or it's off, but at least one of them had manage auto updates, which meant that it had, perhaps multiple choices within the concept of being automatically updated.
The Google Analytics. Has
Yes,
that.
so it looks like the auto update concept can be not just binary, but maybe there's an array of choices.
Yeah. So this is seems like a tough world you're introducing us to, Carol. It's just a lot of management to making this work. And Carol, what would you say is the root cause of why this is so labor intensive?
Carol, you're muted.
There's a lot of functionality that WordPress has available to it. And so, as you keep adding components, you're making it more complex, but it's really been a great system. I mean, I've been using it since the WordPress came out, and there's been a few times where the website has come down and troubleshooting plugins, it's not too difficult. You can, for someone who does it a lot, you go in and you disable the plugins and you turn them back on one by one and you see what's still working, and it's been fine.
And
I don't know. I just have a real problem with auto updates based upon my experience with Windows 10. I don't trust auto updates.
Right. The same way. I don't want to do auto updates.
Adam, I have two more things to share on this topic.
Please.
So when I took that plugin update that broke the site, the main workaround that I partially remember, partially got reminded by Google is I went in with my FTP client, the raw file and folder access to my web hosting. And there's a way you can manually, shift things from one folder to another that basically disables the plugins. And then, like Carol said, you can the website's working again, although all the plugins are off, so not everything works. And then you can start turning them back on again and discover which plugin, or maybe a combination of plugins, God help you, was the conflict. So there are ways to troubleshoot, but you've got to go in through your hosting or through your FTP client. In other words, in a more bare bones sort of way. And the other thing is, the times I've decided to move up the level of PHP on my Drama Club's website, you have to do that at your hosting company. You can't do that through the WordPress dashboard because it's a super fundamental thing. And what I found, I would do it on the phone with my hosting because this was like a really big deal. And part of what I learned was, they don't necessarily have the absolute latest globally released version of PHP. Your ISP has what they choose to have for what PHP they make available to you. And they don't necessarily give you every version in between. And sometimes when you move up to version B from your level A, you can't go back. So you want to be super willing to jump into that territory and deal with the consequences. And yes, but backup won't help you because you can't go back. You can restore all you want, but it ain't going to work. So this stuff can be a really big deal, and you shouldn't do it cavalierly.
Are you glad, Martin, that you did this on your own?
Did what?
That you did this WordPress site. Like, if you had to do it over again, would you?
Oh, well, my running joke about WordPress is I probably spent about up to 50 hours learning and researching and getting ready. And then I was barely competent to do the most minimal site. So this is a trade-off of what's your time and energy and interest versus hiring somebody. Since my drama club is all volunteer and it's a nonprofit, it was fun to explore, but I'm still frustrated by a number of things that I kind of know how to do an HTML. Like, I want to have, articles where you can say, show me the printable version of this article without all the navigation. I'm not clear yet still how to do that in WordPress. And it seems like the answer is depends on your theme, depends on the plugins, depends on stuff that's just, you can't really pin down unless you make a choice and go that way.
Hey, Martin.
Yeah.
Can you put your theater group website into the chat? I just like to take a look at it.
Of course.
I'm putting it up right now.
Oh, there you go. Yep. So, and here's another issue. I'll put it in the chat just for people's reference. Here's another issue. As I learned more about WordPress, I got a little nervous with, the whole plugin theme concept, not because it wasn't cool and modular and flexible and tons of choice out there, but for example, on my own website for my business, which I had not gone to WordPress yet, I use all kinds of tables all over the place, and I'm still fuzzy about how to make a mobile responsive table. And so, hey, I bet there's plugins for that, and I found some, but they didn't work, in my opinion, really well under mobile responsiveness. And I felt like, okay, here's Joe's table plugin. Here's Frank's table plugin. Well, Joe and Frank going to be around next month, next year to continue to support their plugins. And if they're not, I have to rip out my site apart to find another way to do tables, let's say, which might be on a third of my pages. So this is another ongoing frustration. And I've had this happen. I found a super simple table plugin. You give it a CSV file and it puts up a table. Great. It's probably very simple, but the developer stopped developing and it disappeared from the WordPress repository. So, I found a way, but it's really complicated. So this is my ongoing frustration with WordPress is, even a paid theme, how do I know the developer won't just cease to support it? Now, maybe they'll give you a warning, maybe they'll give you a transition. I looked at Divi, but it made me incredibly nervous because there was a thing about if you turn Divi off, your whole site goes to hell because it uses a very special technology. So I'm nervous about WordPress in terms of things that might take hours and hours and hours to find some other, plugin that may not be as good as the one that you were using that got abandoned.
Martin, we're at the site. We're at the site right now. One thing I'm noticing is, for some reason on my browser, I don't know if it's my magnification is funny.
Yeah, go back to 100%.
Yeah, that's what it's doing. Okay.
Just hit Control 0.
Control 0. I heard that. Wait, that's Control 0.
Yeah. Okay, so you're back at 100. I can't explain why you're seeing my site in such a you're kind of in a scrunched form for some reason.
Yeah, I wonder why that is.
I don't have Chrome on only have Firefox, and it comes up normal for me. So
this is Firefox.
Okay, sorry, I don't know what to tell you.
It's not your fault. I'm just curious about it.
You might have some mode in Firefox turned on. I'm not sure.
Okay. This is Martin's regular site, his business site.
Yeah. This is not mobile responsive. This is like from 2003 design.
So it's
a fixed site, as we say.
HTML, right?
Yeah. Well, I think my original designer used a Go Live Pro or something and then generated the HTML.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this will not collapse. This will not collapse nicely on a small screen.
Martin encourages you to call.
And Martin, your site's not secure?
You mean it doesn't have an SSL certificate? Is that what you're asking?
I don't see the HTTPS. I don't see the lock.
Your Belmont one.
That is correct. I have not gotten a certificate for my site.
Yeah, the Belmont one is you really need to look at that for the SSL certificate.
I understand.
And Adam, with the few minutes left, can we maybe kick it back to Carol as our speaker, and maybe she?
Yeah, I think we should too.
I'd love to.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Carol.
Yes, what would you like to talk about?
Or maybe Q&A, or any final comments?
I'd want to know what, Carol, you think the future holds for website security.
It's got it's employing a lot of people, and it's keeping them very busy. And it's just getting worse and worse and worse as far as you know, especially with COVID, we've seen so many, such a peak in cybersecurity, cyber attacks. It's, I think it's a very good field to be in because it's not going anywhere. It's very necessary and
Do you see any
you
big
have
changes?
Forbes saying, you know, it's a national security, IBM saying it's a national security, global security issue, and it's not, it's, I'm sorry, you asked another question.
Do you see any big changes that we might make that would make things safer? Any broad, like legal changes or changes to the technical environment that would make things safer?
To your particular website?
To any website, like, do you think that our policies, that the policies that are in place are creating an environment that promotes security, or do you think the policies in place don't do that?
I think the people behind WordPress are doing a fantastic job. The websites that we take care of that are securing right now, I can see how many times they're updating software, and it's a huge effort, and they're on it. I think it's terrific. I don't think that we have to worry. I mean, you always have to be aware and checking on your website constantly.
Carol,
Yes.
do you host your clients' websites or you just administer them?
Well, I use WP Engine as my hosting company, and I do sometimes move people to WP Engine, but I don't have a hosting server, so I use a third party.
But do you feel more secure when you're, I guess I think what Sharice is asking is, are you the person who's responsible for the website, or are you advising your customer about what to do? Or is it they're paying you for full care?
If they're paying for our plan, then I'm fully responsible. And so if something happens to their website, I'm fixing it for them and bringing it back to life. If they're not on my plan, then it's a different story. I can fix it, and then it's on their decision to whether or not to go with an existing, ongoing plan. Yes.
So it's partly a kind of insurance.
Exactly. It's perfect. That's exactly how I like to explain it too. And it's better than insurance because we're in there every single day or week. If there's, I get notified all the time of updates, and I'm in there, and I'll determine whether or not it's immediate. Well, usually I don't take a day to update because I just don't want to take that chance.
If I can ask you another question, when people come to you and ask to be on your plan, do you insist on certain changes to their website before you'll take them on as customers?
First and foremost, they have to have a WordPress website.
Oh.
And we will implement the plugins that we deem necessary, like for the CDN, for the word fence, the firewalls and everything. And we also implement Google Analytics. And yeah, so there's a list of things that we have that we will definitely implement for them. Sometimes they want to know and sometimes they don't want to know, but we do it.
But anyone can come to you, even if their website, I guess the question I'm asking is, websites are in various shapes of disarray. So if someone comes to you with a website that's just a mess, and then says, here, Carol, we'll pay you your fee, now take care of it. Do you sometimes have to say, actually, no, you're gonna have to reconstruct it?
Yes. If I go in and I see that it's already in bad shape, they need to know that, well, we recently had this happen. So we updated everything we could for this one website, a WordPress website, but it was on such an old version of PHP. And I was working with the hosting company to get that PHP up to date. And we had to really work with that hosting company to convince them that we needed to have it done now. We can't, because they were going to migrate this company. They're migrating everybody over to this new server that's supposed to be secure. When is that going to happen? Not till the end of Q3. We can't wait that long. I just have a client who just paid me to make sure their website's secure. And now I need to put this in place. And this is, if PHP is not up to date, that's a hole. And so, you know what, I'm gonna have to charge, what am I gonna do? Charge them again to fix it every time it gets hacked? So we worked with the hosting company and they agreed to migrate them over to the secure server. So we do what we can to get it done. Because if I see there's a hole, then we make sure that that hole is filled before we hand it back over to the customer. If I can't do it, then I'll tell them I can't do it and I'll give them the money back, but it hasn't happened.
Thank you. Carol, thanks so much for introducing us to this interesting and intricate world.
Oh, you're welcome. My pleasure. I'm glad. Thanks for all the questions.